Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar on commissioning an energy project. So we'll be hearing today from one of our Carbon Trust experts, Alice Ainsworth, and you're going to have the opportunity to ask any questions you might have. You can just type these into the questions pane of the control panel on your right hand side of your screen and type these in at any time, and we'll then go through them during the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. We'll also be sending around the slides and a YouTube link to everyone after the webinar has been completed. Okay, so I'll now hand you over to Alice.
Hi, so as Annie said, I'll be speaking today on commissioning an energy efficiency project. And I thought just for anyone who hasn't come across us before, I'd quickly run through a bit of information about the Carbon Trust. So we're a not-profit organisation, mission-driven towards moving towards a low-carbon economy, and we offer a range of services. So the Green Business Fund, which is hosting this webinar for today, comes under our advice services, where we'll provide SMEs and organisations with information about energy efficiency and renewable energies. So my plan for today is I'll run through a brief introduction where we'll discuss the business case for energy efficiency projects and some of the barriers which are most commonly faced by SMEs. And then I'll move through the main stages of carrying out an energy efficiency project. So this will look at how to determine which projects you should prioritise and are appropriate for your organisation, and how you should then go about carrying out the project. Towards the end of the webinar, I'll also discuss ongoing energy management practices which could be implemented in order to maximise the energy efficiency outcomes of your project. The business case for energy efficiency measures is ever growing. It can generate you quite substantial cost savings. Undertaking energy efficiency measures can enable you to operate far more efficiently, and a 20% cut in energy costs can represent the same bottom line benefit as a 5% increase in sales in many businesses. So if cost is your main value for potentially carrying out an energy efficiency project, then this is really something to take into account, and it can give your business case a lot more clout if it's a case of appealing to senior management for resources. To lower the business impact on the environment by reducing carbon emissions. A recent study also found that we carried out ourselves found that 66% of consumers confirm that they feel more positive about companies that can demonstrate that they're making efforts to reduce the carbon footprint of their products. So implementing energy efficiency across your business is a really clear way of making that commitment. And then thirdly, to comply with regulations and requirements. So increasingly, SMEs are required to provide evidence that they operate sustainably. For example, going out to tenders, SMEs are often asked to share their environmental policy or carbon footprint. So that's another reason to take into consideration and consider implementing an energy efficiency project. Next, we'll move on to the barriers. So some of these might be familiar to you. They're very common ones that we come across. Many don't have the time to commit to the savings. People don't necessarily have money. It's difficult if you don't have the expertise in-house to know which technologies to focus on, which areas you can make the biggest savings. If you're a tenant within a building, it can be difficult, particularly if it's sort of HVAC boilers or lighting that you're looking to install. You may not have control over that. And finally, disinterested staff. In order to really see substantial savings, employee engagement is vital, because you can implement your technology, but you also need it to be being operated in the most efficient way. So engaging with staff is a really vital step across the entire pathway to sort of energy efficiency. And I'll sort of touch upon that as we go through the webinar today. So if you're looking to start and considering carrying out an energy efficiency project, the first thing and one of the most important steps is your data management and monitoring, because if you can't measure it, you can't manage or improve it. Carrying out an office walk around is important, and you can really gain a lot from it. It's useful to do them at a number of different times because it provides you sort of a better picture of where energy might be wasted. So if you carry out sort of an office walk around or site walk around at the start or end of the working day, during operational hours, just before a weekend or bank holiday, or after starting an awareness campaign, then it gives you a real opportunity to see, for example, is there equipment that's being left on at the end of the working day that should be turned off? During operational hours, are sort of windows being open whilst the heating's on, things like that that you wouldn't necessarily be able to ascertain at different times of the day. Then a smart meter is a really good way if you haven't been provided one by your energy supplier as of yet. They can provide a really interesting insight and useful insight into your energy consumption. You can get daily profiles so you can see where the peaks are in your consumption, and that can be really useful going forward, particularly if you're then combining that with reviewing your energy bills. If you're on a straight tariff, and you find from your smart meter that actually a large proportion of your consumption is coming from a time of day that would be considered off-peak, then actually a split tariff would potentially save your company in terms of a different unit cost, lower unit rate. And then you've also got to take into account whether your bills are based on actual or estimated data. If currently your energy bills are provided with estimated data, I'd really encourage you to start reading your meters regularly. So it can often be beneficial to assign responsibility for this to one individual within your organisation, and take sort of weekly or monthly meter readings, and then that will give you the most accurate log of your consumption. The climate change levy does apply to most companies. Any company that pays standard rate of VAT, then the CCL does apply to you. But there are some exceptions, and the rate does vary slightly depending on your industry sector. So again, it's worth checking that the rate that you're being charged is correct. Once you've got your energy profile and you've got a good understanding of your consumption, where the highest areas of consumption are, then you can use your data and you can really utilise it to help establish which projects would be most beneficial for you. So it can help you to identify your high priority areas, set targets. So if you're measuring at a baseline, you measure your baseline of your energy consumption, and then you can see from that what a sort of attainable, but also so an attainable target can be for reducing your consumption. So general best practice for setting targets is to use the SMART framework, which is that your target should be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. So it's really useful to have sort of a date in there by which you hope to achieve the target, and that can often also, if you get your targets signed off by senior management, help you to have greater access to resources in achieving them. Measuring your data means that you can quantify your projects and create better, credible business and investment cases. And then once you've commissioned your project as well, you can then demonstrate savings and track your progress and performance far more easily if you've already got sort of good practice data management in place. So if you've got your data management there, but you're an organisation where maybe you don't have the staff and resourcing to put towards identifying where you're best placed to implement energy efficiency technologies, or you find that you don't have necessarily a huge amount of in-house expertise, then the Carbon Trust and Green Business Fund offer opportunity assessments to SMEs in England, Scotland and Wales, where one of our technical consultants can work with you to identify the 3 top energy saving recommendations for your business, and those are available until the end of December 2019. To be eligible, you need to be an organisation with fewer than 250 employees, and it's a really great resource, as I said, if you don't have a great deal of in-house technical knowledge. One of our applicants, following an assessment from ourselves, reduced their energy bills by £6,000 annually, and that had a payback of 3.7 years. So, as I said, it's a really valuable resource. For organisations that are sort of operating greater than SME level, ESOS Phase 2 is currently underway, and the compliance deadline for that is the 5th of December 2019. And again, within ESOS, you'll be provided with recommendations in your compliance report. And if you're looking for more information regarding ESOS, then if you email in to info@carbontrust.com, we can guide you there. Once you have worked out which project you're looking to carry out, so for example, an LED lighting project, going out to tender is the next important step to take. We generally recommend you source sort of 3 to 5 quotes, at least 2, and that will enable you to compare across suppliers. So if you're doing that, you can then look at the proposed technological solution. You can compare those and you can see which one is most appropriate for your business. You can compare the kilowatts or wattage of the proposed system, the price, which of course very important, but alongside price, it's important to take into consideration value for money and not just the lowest cost. So look at what you're getting for your money as well as the cost of the project. Make sure when you're sort of speaking with your potential suppliers that you ascertain how long it will take to complete the project, the warranty of the installation and the cost per kilowatt. We often find that the projects whose energy efficiency outcomes often best align with those proposed are ones which have one main contractor or one supplier that can complete the end-to-end sort of supply and install of a project. It's beneficial. Not only does it sort of give you peace of mind in terms of not having to manage multiple contractors on site if there's one contractor responsible for the entire project, but as I said, it also we have found that having one maximises the energy efficiency outcomes. Having spoken with a couple of suppliers, generally found that they find it beneficial if they can have a member of staff accompany them on site when they're looking to provide a quote for a project. And that will mean that they can establish how your business works, get a good idea of the context of the installation, which will help them provide something that's most appropriate. And it also means that no areas are missed. So particularly if it's sort of an LED lighting project, a quote will vary quite substantially if there are rooms that a supplier may not have gone into if they didn't have a member of staff who knows the site accompanying them around. When your supplier does come, it's also useful for them because they'll be able to give you a more accurate estimation of potential savings that you could be making if you have your current unit price available. So if you are managing and monitoring your invoices from your energy supplier, then you can go through, have a look at your current unit price or potentially your average unit price over a year period if that was what you wanted to look at. Estimated run hours of the equipment you're looking to replace, and the annual energy consumption of your site in total. So those 3 things are really useful for them to calculate accurately the potential energy savings associated with your project. Again, the Carbon Trust can offer implementation advice to organisations. So if you've got a project in mind, you've got a boiler that needs replacing, for example, then the Carbon Trust can help you to go out to suppliers, and then they can also help sort of establish a project feasibility check. We can provide help writing performance specifications which are appropriate for your business, and provide tendering support, so supplier identification and assessment of tenders, which would of course include the comparison of the quotes and looking at sort of best value for money option for yourself. When you go to install your project, it's important that you work closely with your supplier throughout the install. So having quite a hands-on take and dedicating some resource during the install period can be really beneficial in the long run, particularly to make sure that works are carried out as you would expect them to be. Make sure that you're happy with what's being carried out, make sure that you have a good understanding of the equipment that's being installed. So again, it really helps if you can make one individual responsible for that, and then they can in turn work with the supplier quite closely, which can ensure a successful project both for yourself and obviously for your supplier as well. Keep note of any amendments or additions to the original scope of work. So if there are models of lights which decide to be changed, or anything else that needs amending across the project, or if costs change due to potentially needing different equipment, specialist equipment to complete the install. Keeping a note of these is really useful so that you have, again, a close eye on the overall cost of the project, timeline of the project, and an understanding of what you can expect to receive once the project's been completed. If changes to the project specification or cost are agreed with your supplier, ensure your supplier provides you with an updated quote which accurately reflects the scope of work to be carried out. Again, it's really useful to have a paper trail of any changes, and then it just means that when it comes to invoicing and commissioning, there's no confusion or ambiguity over the work that's been expected to be completed. Whilst also looking at the quote, I'd recommend ensuring that you have a full equipment list provided by your supplier on the quote. So that includes the model, if it's lighting, then the wattage, the unit cost and the quantity. Again, that's just so that you've got a clear record of what you expect to be installed, and can keep sort of close understanding of what's being carried out at your site. It can be difficult if you have sort of multiple contractors coming in, you're doing a sort of a phased move across to sort of retrofit of your office to LED lighting. If you don't necessarily know exactly which supplier has carried out which installation at which time, it can be difficult then if in future you've got any issues where lights need to be replaced and it's within warranty. You need to be able to identify who installed what. So again, that sort of comes down to having a clear scope and quotation provided from the outset, and also having that one main contractor who you can go to for any changes to your project. Supplier advice, again, is communication is key to a successful project. So if your organisation is quite large and there are various departments and you're expecting an individual or your suppliers to come in and carry out a project on a specific date, make sure that internally everyone is also aware so that supplier has access to the site, and also so it sort of minimises any disruption to your business. Suppliers will work with you. They want to make sure that the project is a positive experience for you as it can be, and minimising disruption to your business is obviously a huge part of that. So be clear from the outset regarding the appropriate installation times. If, for example, you're a school and therefore access is only appropriate at potentially weekends or holidays, finding that out when you're going out, sort of making that clear at the tendering stage, means that you can make sure that you've got a supplier who will work with you, and keep that in mind to minimise any disruption. Upon completion of your project, a site walk around with your supplier is again important. So while you've done one at the start, when they've been surveying and you've sort of kept walking around whilst it's been installing, going around with your supplier means that they can work through the equipment list with you, so you've got an understanding of exactly what's installed where, which again is useful going forward in terms of maintenance of the works that have been installed. So if lights need to be changed, or there are sort of small component parts that need to be fixed in the future, then you know exactly what's been installed and where. and review the quote for the project against the invoice and commissioning certificate. So if there have been any changes to cost, then they are easily identified, and you can then query that with your supplier, discuss that straight away, and make sure that you're all happy with the project, that the cost that's being paid. And then the commissioning certificate is again very important. It's the signed document, which will be signed by both yourselves as the company and also by your suppliers, and it acts as confirmation that the project's been completed. And in some instances, that's sort of the validation of the warranty as well. So having that signed commissioning certificate and making sure that it matches exactly what's been installed means that if there are any problems, you can go straight to your commissioning certificate, you can call up your supplier and you can say, you know, this piece of equipment isn't working quite as we'd like, or perhaps in areas where, again, going back to sort of the lighting example, if you find that there are areas where you need additional lighting, then you can quickly sort of contact your supplier, work with them again, and get that resolved. Ensuring that members of staff are correctly trained on how to use newly installed equipment is also very important, and that goes back to the beginning when I sort of touched upon the importance of employee engagement with energy efficiency. We've had an instance previously where we went and carried out a post-implementation site visit to discuss sort of how they were finding that their newly installed equipment was performing. And they said, you know, their costs had come down initially, but they've gone back up to how they were, so they didn't really think that necessarily the equipment was performing very well. But then sort of on further discussion with various members of the team, we ascertained that it was actually the case that the equipment was being left on for longer periods of time because people sort of thought, oh, well, it's efficient, so it doesn't matter and it's okay if it's running for longer periods of time. Which obviously then eats into the savings that you would otherwise expect to see. So staff engagement is always important, and it's great to just sort of keep working with your staff throughout the project. So from the outset, when you do your site walk around, speak to staff, find out how they find that, for example, the heating in the office, if they're finding that it's consistently underperforming or overperforming. That's something that you might not necessarily know on a site walk around unless you talk to members of staff whilst doing so. And then once it's been installed, you can make sure that, you know, you can say this has been done to make sure to sort of resolve your issues over the heating, but this is how it needs to be used to make sure that it works for you and also continues to contribute towards the energy efficiency and carbon savings of your organisation. Going back to the commissioning certificate, here's an example of the kinds of things that should be stated clearly on your commissioning certificate. So your company's registered name and address and the date of installation, full list of the equipment supplied, and that should match the original quote, or if you've had your project hasn't changed over the course, then it should match the amended quote. The site address where the equipment was installed, the installation engineer's printed name and signature and date. And then again, a representative from your company's printed name, signature and date, and the equipment supplier's name and address as detailed on your project quote and invoice. So that just means that you've got a really clear audit trail and your paperwork all matched up. And if you have any sort of queries at a later date, you can easily refer back to it, contact your supplier, and have it resolved. The commissioning procedure provides you an opportunity to identify and rectify any faults in your newly installed system. So before your project is signed off as complete and before you say that you're happy with what's been installed, go around and check that everything that you would like done has been. And if you then find that perhaps you need slightly more light in the room, or something slightly different, it's not quite working for you, or it's not going to work with regards to the sort of operations of your business, this gives you a chance to go back, work with your supplier again, and make sure that it's right for you. And then it also enables any questions you have about operating the new equipment to be addressed. So if you're going to be training members of staff on how to use the equipment, make sure that first you've got a full understanding, and your supplier can be really useful there and really beneficial in making sure that you do. So the final bit is realising your energy savings, and this is something which is always important. It's the main bit. It's why you want to carry out an energy efficiency project in the first place. And the top one is regular maintenance of equipment. So if you've got sort of heating equipment, or you've got air conditioning equipment, the condition of it can have a really significant impact upon its efficiency and therefore its energy consumption. There are regulations around maintenance of equipment in some instances. So for example, gas boilers, they need to be checked annually, and improving having these regular checks can improve the performance of your equipment by between 5 and 30%, and that's the same for air conditioning equipment as well. So once you've had it installed, that's step one on your energy efficiency journey, as it were. But you need to make sure that you're continuing to engage with it, continuing to use it, and maintenance is a really vital aspect of that. As I've said previously, assigning responsibility for equipment to individuals within your company is a really great way of managing energy. If no one knows who's responsible for it, then it's easy for it to sort of fall by the wayside. But if one individual has responsibility, then they can not only engage with their colleagues in the workplace, but they also can be the ones that carry out meter reading and ensure you've got accurate records, can make sure that if maintenance is required, they've got record of when it's required, and it can be their responsibility to organise that. So it just helps in terms of managing sort of limited staff resources that you may have within your organisation and making the most of what's available. Continue to undertake regular sort of housekeeping walkarounds. This will enable you to establish that the equipment's being used effectively and making the most out of that. You'll then be able to identify any further opportunities for savings. You can re-engage with staff or students if it's been installed at a school, and you can eliminate any wasteful practices. So you can keep sort of a close eye on how things are being used within the space. Developing an energy policy is a really great way as well of managing your energy. So generally, these are signed off by senior management, so it shows senior management commitment to reducing energy consumption on site. It enables you to set clear objectives and targets for energy consumption. You can identify in that policy document the responsibilities and resources, and set out a review timeframe. So if you want to revisit this annually, that's sort of best practice generally within policies to revisit it annually, revisit your targets, see what's working and what's not, and then you can make tweaks and amend as necessary. Having an energy policy also makes a clear sort of statement of commitment, which you can then use when going out to tenders, or you can communicate externally to show your commitment to carbon savings and energy efficiency. If you haven't already, then contacting your energy supplier to request a smart meter is generally very worthwhile in terms of keeping a close eye on your energy and managing it well. And comparing your energy invoices pre and post project to assess the savings you're making is vital if you want to establish how well your installation is performing. And it also means it can help build your business case for further investment in energy efficiency opportunities. So if you've installed one project, say you replaced an old boiler, it may have been sort of over 40 years old, and then they can be found to be running at sort of only 45% efficiency. If you replace that, you'll see really substantial and rapid savings. And again, that will help the business case to access greater amounts of sort of funding and capital to implement further projects. You don't necessarily have to have capital available to invest in energy efficiency equipment, or energy efficiency in itself rather. You can take steps to reduce your energy consumption, and even low and no cost actions can usually reduce your energy costs by about 10%, produce quick returns and enhance profitability. So that's again it comes back to sort of the regular walk rounds. You can then see quickly how equipment's being utilised. You can put sort of stickers, you can set thermostats so that they're more appropriate for the workspace. So if it's sort of just a general office space, then between sort of 17 and 19 degrees is generally considered appropriate. And then when you've got all of that in place, you'll see that you can make some substantial savings without necessarily having to make large capital investment. And finally, I'll just touch upon some of the other services that we offer within the Green Business Fund. So the Green Business Fund is a scheme operated by the Carbon Trust to support SMEs in England, Wales and Scotland implement energy efficiency and take action to reduce their carbon footprint. It's, as I said, eligible if you've got fewer than 250 employees, annual turnover not in excess of 25.9 million, or an annual balance sheet not in excess of 12.9. And you can see there who will be eligible for the GBF services. We offer workshops, so our upcoming workshops we've got in Birmingham, Swansea, Northampton, Stoke-on-Trent, Yorkshire and Milton Keynes. And those are 2-hour workshops on energy efficiency, where we'll go into more detail on which energy efficiency measures you can implement and the savings associated with those. And also, again, work through the sort of no and low cost measures that you can take. We've got opportunity assessments and implementation advice, which I discussed earlier, and those are delivered by Carbon Trust engineers and consultants. And again, aimed at SMEs to provide support in carrying out energy efficiency projects. Technical webinars, so just like the one that you've all joined today, we've got technical webinars on a variety of things. There's one on refrigeration coming up, and a few others as well. So keep an eye on our events page and see if there are any that are relevant to you. And then we've got our Green Business Fund guides, which are again on our website, and they provide up-to-date information on a whole host of various topics, including HVAC, lighting, how to be a good supplier, so how to work well within your supply chain, carbon footprinting and renewable energy sources. We've also just released for 2019 got new tools where you can measure your carbon footprint, benchmark your energy use and build your business case for lighting upgrades. So have a look at that tool if you're looking to calculate your energy savings. Then it's a really simple way of doing so and sort of overcomes any issues that you might have regarding in-house and technical expertise required. So I'll just hand you over to my colleague Annie.
Thanks, Alice. That's really helpful. I hope that's been some useful tips for you. We've had a few questions in, but we're just going to pause the webinar for a couple of minutes. So if you do have any questions, just type those in the questions pane and we'll answer as many as we can in the next couple of minutes. Thanks. Okay, great. We're just going to go through some of the questions now. So one of the ones we've got in is someone who says that they are looking at installing LED lighting. Do we have suppliers that we would recommend for those kinds of projects?
So I'd suggest first port of call is our Green Business Directory, where we have a number of suppliers for various different technologies. So whether it be LED lighting or HVAC or a renewable project. If you have a look there, then we work with them. The accreditation process means that we've sort of reviewed the quality of work that they carry out. So it's generally a fairly good resource for selecting suppliers. And of course, again, if you would like further assistance with comparing quotes and going out to tender, then the implementation advice is also a great place to look.
Great. Somebody else also said that they are a small business owner and they don't have very much expertise in-house, but what would be the first step if they were just to do one thing to reduce our energy consumption?
So yeah, as sort of we discussed, the first thing, and I would say the most important step, is measuring your energy consumption and making sure that you're sort of keeping accurate records yourself of energy consumption. And then once you've done that, you'll then be able to identify patterns in consumption and see where your greatest savings are.
Great. And another question we had through was, are schools able to use the Green Business Fund?
Yeah, the Green Business Fund is available for schools, and it's worth pointing out as well, the Green Business Fund services are all free, so at no cost to your business or school in this case. They're available, the implementation advice, opportunity assessments, and all of the online resources as well.
Great. And just got time for a final question, which was, are there any grants available for schools?
Yeah, so there are some grants available for schools. We don't have any at the Carbon Trust ourselves, but Salix do offer sort of loan and financial support for schools, so it may be worth having a look there, and also getting in touch potentially with your local council, local authority, because they may be aware of funding or grant opportunities.
That's great. And if anyone does have any more questions that we didn't get a chance to answer today, you can feel free to email those over to us. We'll be sending out the slides, and the presentation will also be available to view on YouTube, so you can have a look back when you get a chance. So I'd just like to thank everyone for attending today's webinar, and have a good day. Thank you.